Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Open Range. My name's Patrick Hart. I get to be your guest host today, and I get to give a special shout out to Gary Emineth. Thank you for allowing me to guest host your program. Thank you for the viewers. Thank you, Beck, for the opportunity to be in the studio. And of course, thanks for the sponsors for writing the checks to make sure that this studio has lights in it. If we haven't met yet, my name is Patrick Hart. I am a 10-year, I'll say, super volunteer for the Democrats. Ran for statewide office twice. I've ran the party. I've made donor calls. I've done pretty much anything, and it's been a good ride. That's what's gotten me here in the seat in front of you today. As a lieutenant governor candidate, I really ran on a platform of just having a good governance, of seeing good governance return. The state auditor, I ran on a platform of making sure we eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse, which was well intended until the DOGE effect came in last cycle. I think they took that one and ran with it, and I absolutely ascertain that they stole that term from me. You guys, we are on the cusp of session 2026. We're on the verge of coming into a special session called by Governor Kelly Armstrong. It's going to convene right before Labor Day weekend. And we're told this is happening because of Kratom, a drug that has been on the marketplace for some time. It's labeled in a way that it's non-regulated as a supplement, and anyone can pretty much buy this from any gas station. However, most of us didn't know that because that's kind of, in my opinion, a smokescreen to why we're really coming into session. See, Kratom has been around, and in last session, session 2025, both the House and the Senate passed a bill to implement a study to study the effects of this drug on our population, but it wasn't funded, and the study died after being passed by both houses and Senate. If it was an issue, our legislators should have funded it, and we should have dealt with this proactively, but it wasn't. So now we're being told the special session is coming into place so that we can deal with this. However, the looming issues that we are seeing are a lack of funding for the War Museum. The sponsored donations haven't been coming in like they wanted to. And of course, there's this big outcry on AI data centers coming in left and right. And I think everyone, at least in my circle, thinks that when this session comes into place, we're going to see a bid at school lunches, which has been voted down year after year after year after year. But now when there's a constitutional amendment on the ballot, I think we're finally going to see some action. But I would maintain that this is not how our government's supposed to work. We're supposed to be proactive. We're supposed to listen to the people. And I have two people that I'm going to interview today, Tiffany Williams-Rice, running for House in District 7, and Kimball Banks, running for House in District 33. And we're going to talk to them about how they have been listening to the constituents, and they will make a difference this fall. Tiffany, Kimball, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What do you guys think? You're going to see your opponents in action in 2 or 3 weeks. Is that kind of exciting?
I think it is. So far, at least in District 33, our opponents have been rather silent. Seen some yard signs and all that, but not as many as I would have expected. But we shall see what happens as we get closer to the election. So,
Tiffany, you excited? Are you going to go to special session? Sit up in the balcony?
I do plan on being there, but my district is a little bit different because I'm not sure if 2 of my opponents will be there because they're not already in office, but I know Axman may be there or should be there, right? If she represents District 7.
Absolutely. I would imagine that all of the candidates locally will be in that balcony, and I imagine that everyone that's selected is going to be in their seat. Do you guys have a take particularly on this special session, on what's going on, or what have you been hearing?
I think you're right. At least as far as, the SNAP program, school lunches, and the others. I'm not so sure about AI because they already set up that Senate committee on that, and they've had their first hearing a couple of weeks ago. So what's going to come out of that, I don't know at this point in time. So
now I got to back up. I did an awesome introduction on myself. I think maybe just kind of winged it. Kimball, tell me about you. Who are you? Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from California. I grew up in a very political household, Democrat household. Grew up listening around the kitchen table, talking politics. My father was had a political position within the state government in California, and then went to graduate school. I've got a graduate degree in archaeology. I then went to work for the federal government. Spent most of my career in the federal government, federal sector, doing environmental reviews and resource management studies. Talked to a lot of solicitors in there, and I'd often get the question, well, we'd talk about laws and stuff, and they weren't very familiar with the laws I had to deal with, and they would ask me what I thought about it. So I became kind of a shade tree lawyer in that regard because, I had to interpret these laws. So working in the government, working in the federal sector gives you a really good idea of how government works. And I think it applies to the state level as well. So
I absolutely agree. I had a couple of years where I got to interpret regulation as well. And it's interesting to me to read your century code or your, federal code regulations or your administrative code. And the nuances between the must and the shalls are really interesting to me. And also the way that they provide the definitions. So,
yeah, well, you kind of have to, you learn to pick and choose. You choose those sections that are going to back up your argument versus what the opposition is going to do. So it's an interesting process.
Well, before I ask Tiffany for your background, I want to just touch on one thing. Kimball, I was reading your bio, and you've done a lot of work with water reclamation, yes. Water implementation.
Yes.
I think water is like the next big issue of the 20 or 30 years out.
Oh, I fully agree. There was a plan at one time about 20 years ago to pipe water from the Missouri over to California because of the water issues they were having there. And there's three things in life you need, and one is to eat, two is to drink and water, and third is to breathe air.
When I first heard something very similar to that they were going to try to pipe to the Colorado system.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought about the elevation change, but who knows?
Well, they have some major water pipelines going over the Rockies, but so it wouldn't be that difficult, but would be a major project. At this point, I don't think I could see Congress ever funding something like that.
Sure.
So,
Tiffany, tell us about you. What's your background? Do you have kids? What's your job?
Yes.
Who are you?
Okay. I'm Tiffany Williams-Rice, and I'm an educator currently now. I work within Bismarck Public Schools. Previously, I worked in healthcare operations for many years. I helped out with managing acquisition projects, accessibility projects. One of my largest projects was for rural healthcare, helping to increase service lines. Also, I had the opportunity to work with the Department of Justice. I have worked with the Department of Justice on many projects. And a lot of people may know me from working with the human trafficking task force. Okay. So I did a little work on that. That was a big issue here in North Dakota and Minnesota throughout the years. So I helped with initiating that process to get the Safe Harbor program started in the northwestern part of Minnesota. And also it was a part of Fargo-Moorhead area as well. So that's kind of like a little bit about myself. I have extensive backgrounds as far as policy. I would just say I'm pretty well-rounded with understanding policies. That's one reason why I'm running for office, because I know that we actually have a lot of problems with our healthcare system. Even though here in North Dakota, we have the best healthcare system, I think, in my opinion, but we still have some gaps. We still have some things that we can improve on. Even though we have the best educational system here in North Dakota, we still need to work on the funding issues as well. Our school systems aren't being properly funded by the federal level, also by the state level as well. The salaries here in North Dakota has been a problem for many years. I know when I first started college, that was an issue here in North Dakota, and that's been over 10 years ago, or maybe over 20 years ago, since I've taken a class on the salary ranges for North Dakotas, and no increase has happened. So that's something that, like, if I was elected, I want to work on increasing the salary for teachers and public sector workers, because I think that's very important. I worked in the public sector for many years, and I know that for the public sector workers, the salary range is not equivalent.
Well, you know, to touch on that, and I get my sessions mixed up now that I've been paying attention for so long. Either last session or 2 sessions ago, they made it easier to be a teacher, but they didn't increase pay.
Right.
And I thought that that is 2 different ways of dealing with the same problem. I think we got to pay the people, and if anyone we should be paying, it's our teachers. Make sure our kids get a good education.
I agree, because a 2.5% increase is a slap in the face. And I feel like, due to the lack of funding, a lot of people are hoping for a salary increase of maybe 6 or 8%. I don't know if that's really going to happen right now, unless we elect some different people in office that are willing to support teachers in public education here in North Dakota.
Well, I love that. Let's send it to commercial break. We'll be back after these messages from our sponsors with Tiffany Williams-Rice and Kimball Banks. Hey, thanks everyone for sticking through that first commercial break. My name is Patrick Hart, but today I have Kimball Banks running for House in District 33, Tiffany Williams-Rice running for House in District 7. And Kimball, I want to give you the microphone for a couple minutes.
Okay.
Can I just start by asking why you're running?
Well, for several reasons. First off, in District 33, according to Ballotopedia, there's not been a Democrat on the ticket since at least 2014. So one of the things is, we hope to give the voters in that district a choice, between Democrat and Republican versus just between Republican and Republicans. So we think they need a choice. The other thing is, I first came to the state in 1989, and since then I've seen a lot of changes. I think that it's on a good growth cycle, but there's needs to be some controls, particularly with the data centers issue. That I hear that issue wherever we've gone. So that seems to be an overriding issue at this point in time. So
now, can I ask you not to be a politician and to skirt away from this direct question, direct answer? Are you against data centers?
No, I'm not against data centers per se. I mean, they're, irrespective, they're here to stay. They're not going to go away. My fear is that they are growing at they're appearing all over the place. I mean, Ohio, my brother lives in Ohio, and I was talking to him yesterday, and they have 72 data centers in that state. We've got, 5 now, and I've heard projections they're going to be 27 in the state. But you look, nationwide. I mean, it's just a boom. To me, it's kind of a wild west. I mean, there's just so much money involved in it that and there aren't any regulations yet. There's very few regulations at the local level. Some states have passed moratoriums, but at the federal level, the only real thing that's come out is an executive order last year from the president. So at this point in time, I think there's a lot of developers that are trying to cash in before they realize sooner or later regulations are going to come. Ordinances are going to be passed at the local, state, and national level. They want to get in on that before that happens. So I'm cynical. Let's put it that way.
Well, no, I think you're being realistic and honest. And then when I look at government and regulation, government always lags industry because industry is moving at such a fast pace. They're trying to get the cutting edge to make a little bit more money, and that's their business.
Yeah.
I think we're in a unique opportunity where we can potentially regulate this before it happens so that we don't have to have a special session in a year.
I don't think that, I think it needs to remain at the local level because, they're going to have to, these counties are going to have to live with whatever development goes on there. But I think the Senate or the state legislature needs to put guardrails around it. In other words, when you're considering a data center, these are the issues you should look at.
Sure.
And for instance, my deal is a socioeconomic study by a third party. The contractor hires that, but the county commission approves of that contractor. You hear all these amount of monies being kicked around that will come into the county, but that's coming from the developer. And obviously they're trying to sell a product, so they're going to make it sound as best they can. So I think there needs to be an independent third party look at data, socioeconomic impact. What's it going to be on the community itself? What it really realistically is going to contribute economically? What about housing for all the workers and all that? Infrastructure, your health system, rural health and all that, since most of these are going into rural areas. I think that type of information, county boards, commissioners need that type of information to make an informed decision. So,
well, in my travels, I kind of run into a lot of interesting people. I ran into a gentleman that was high level in ITD not too long ago. And I asked him, after having a 5 or 10 minute conversation, I said, how long are these going to last? I said, 2045 is my guess. I'll give him 20 years. He seemed to think about 10 or 15, which is significantly less.
That's what I've heard because, quantum computing is the next big thing that's going to happen. And that it takes a whole different environment to operate. In other words, the quantum computers right now have to have a temperature base of about 0 degrees Kelvin, another absolute zero. So it's a whole different environment, a whole different computing technology and all that, a whole different series of chips. So the estimates are they're going to be commercially available in 5 to 10 years. So, that's another worry is are they prepared, can these existing data centers be converted to quantum computing if they want to do so? And how much is that going to cost and what's it going to involve? The other issue is what happens if a developer comes in and is going to pay so much money, most of these hyperscaler, you're talking billions of dollars. They're coming in but what happens if they run out of money before it's completed?
Sure.
Who's going to pick up the tab for that? So another thing I think needs to be done is they need to have surety bills or surety measures bonds for decommissioning. And so if a company has to fold out, the community's not stuck with it. The cleanup are doing and they make terrible, malls and stuff. So
they would, especially 15 miles northwest of Mandan. So what's a solution? How can we proactively get ahead of this? I feel like whenever I have this AI conversation, I think reclamation is number one on my list. And it seems like a community impact plan.
Yeah, a community benefit plan, which is basically a contract between the developer and the community that they're going to guarantee so much for housing and contributing to the betterment of the community. So
now you're representing Mandan, District 33. That's
Yes.
Mandan North, right?
Yes.
Morton County has its own sales tax, which is unique to Morton County. So Morton County will make sales tax, but to my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, the legislator approved for a sales tax exemption for AI data centers?
For the equipment that goes into that center.
Okay.
Not for the structure itself. They pay property taxes on that, but for all the equipment, they're exempt from sales tax and use tax. And that equipment has to be replaced every 3 to 5 years, and that will be exempt as well.
Sure.
So it's a sweetheart deal for these data companies.
Well, it is, and I think of this term in business where we call it a race to the bottom, where you try to undercut your competitor to get another job. Yeah. And instead of proving yourself on service or on your product that you're, giving, you undercut a bid, and then they undercut, and then all of a sudden there's no market. And I don't understand, again, I'll say this, I've said it about oil. Why are we deciding that out-of-state corporations that are making billions of dollars are the ones that get a tax relief?
That's what the two thing, going around door knocking, and throughout we're also all over Mercer counties and part of McLean. The two things I've heard is, one is concern about data centers, and two is having foreign companies come in.
Right.
So, and with these data centers, they're linked together.
So I'm telling you, I'm raising a family, I'm running a business. Sometimes I hear things, but I want to know the truth. So I'm going to ask you, because I don't know. This Mandan AI data center, did an Israeli conglomerate really buy that?
Yeah.
So this isn't local. This isn't even national. This is
No,
an
the
international company coming in.
The company that had started out, what they did was they went out and got options to buy on about 640 acres on north of Old Red Trail. That company then sold out to this Israeli firm, and this was just within this week. So yes, it looks like you're going to have an Israeli firm coming in and building that.
And they get a sales tax exemption.
Yeah, as far as I know, they do.
Oh my gosh!
Otherwise. But there's other issues with that data center, and it's unlike the ones in Mercer and Oliver County. Those are going into rural areas. The one in Mandan is just going north of Old Red Trail. It's surrounded by housing developments. There's 2 schools, a middle school and the new high school just south of there. You're going to have increased traffic coming up 1806 with about 2,000 workers. And, it's going to interrupt the traffic going into and out of the high school. Plus, those students are going to have to live with construction going on for at least 2 years, and it'll be noisy because they're going to, if they follow what other data centers have done, they're going to be, for one thing, putting in pilings down about 120 feet into the earth. So it's to us, it's not a good thing. It's not well sited. Let's put it that way.
I absolutely agree, and I have heard those piles going. We just got done putting the bridge in the middle of Bismarck, and everyone's been hearing that thumping for years too.
So we've gone door knocking in throughout Mandan, and that's the biggest issue we've seen. So there's going to be a town hall meeting on the 6th in the new high school, and it starts, I think, at 6:30. And what it is citizens are going to come in, and we're going to talk about the city of Mandan will release their draft ordinance that afternoon. So we're just going to go through the ordinance and see what people think is good, what's bad, what's missing.
Okay.
Go from there. And then on the 24th is the Mandan Planning and Zoning Commission is having their first meeting to go over that ordinance. And so, I think that people should attend that to get their views in, because this is a citizen's deal. This is what democracy is. So
now we got about a minute left, and I want to pivot you just a little bit. When you got into this race 8 months ago, maybe 10 months ago, you were making the decision.
It was a lifetime ago.
Data centers weren't really even on our radar. Like there's kind of this thing down in Ellendale.
Yeah.
Maybe there was one up, in the West Valley. Data centers has been largely what everyone in my circles are talking about. AI data centers. Is this why you got into it, or does this just happen to be the biggest thing that's going on right now?
Well, it's one of the reasons. I'm kind of a techno nerd anyway, so I'm always following. I computer illiterate, but I'm following what's going on within the computer world and internet and all that. So I've gotten interested in data centers just because they do represent a whole different new type of computing. So and I don't look just locally. I've been focusing on nationally as well.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, we got to break to commercial. We got Kimball Banks running for District 33 House and Tiffany Williams-Rice running for District 7 House. I'm Patrick Hart. We'll see you after this break. Well, welcome back, TV viewers. My name is Patrick Hart. Appreciate you guys. If you've been streaming online too, you can find all these episodes on becktv.com. My name is Patrick Hart. I'm interviewing today Kimball Banks and Tiffany Williams-Rice running for House District 33 and House District 7. Tiffany, we just heard from Kimball. Tell us about you. Why are you running? Why are you in this race this cycle?
Well, I'm running because there are so many gaps when we think about the economic issues centered around healthcare, education, major industries here in North Dakota. And I feel like there are some gaps right now. And a lot of people have been impacted, regardless of what their financial situation is. That's one reason why I stepped up. And for many reasons, I feel like if I wouldn't have made that decision now, what better time would it be? Why wait? I feel like now is the time for people to stand up, because right now, North Dakota is falling apart and it's rapid. I'm not just I'm not just making this decision on my own perception, but I'm hearing it from people in this area, especially within District 7 and throughout the Bismarck-Mandan area, that a lot of people can't afford to live in Bismarck, and something is wrong with that. This is actually the capital, and people should be able to afford to live. And right now, people are being priced out.
Well, absolutely. And I want to touch on something. You mentioned some gaps in healthcare and education. Can you kind of expand on what you meant by that?
Okay. So I've been doing a lot of door knocking lately, and I've been meeting with a lot of retired people. And they've been sharing information with me as far as healthcare concerns. It's not that they didn't pay in or they didn't work hard. Now they're actually dealing with some difficulties of not being able to afford health insurance. We already know what happened with the Obamacare plans. Initially, with the Obamacare plans, it wasn't like the best, but it did provide people with options. It gave people options, because what happens is if people didn't have access to Obamacare plans initially, most hospitals would have to close, because that overhead cost, what people don't realize is it goes back on the hospitals, and they actually have to figure out what to do with the cost, because Medicare and Medicaid plans, they don't pay out much. So those are the issues there. But I want to take a step back and focus back on the healthcare situation when dealing with the elderly population. So what's going on now is many people can't afford those plans. So initially we had the Obamacare plans. Now we have plans that have tripled. So people actually have to make a decision. Do I keep my health insurance, or do I just do away with it? And that's a complicated issue, because if they do away with those plans, what happens is if they have a terminal illness, the overhead cost goes back on the facilities. Or what could happen, it's not legal. They may not get the proper services, and quality of care will fail. It will fail because somebody actually has to pay it.
Right.
Yeah. So just hearing those conversations have been difficult for me, because some people are actually going to probably have to make a decision to sell their homes, or what do they do?
No, absolutely. And it's kind of elbowed Kimball a little bit about AI being and data centers being the crux this election cycle. Last cycle, when I was running, it was property taxes. And everyone says, what happens if retired people can't or get forced out of their home because of property taxes? Well, there's actually an exemption in place for that.
And that's another issue.
But there isn't an exemption in place for healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of your major financial needs in your elderly years of life.
Right. And I want to talk about rural healthcare a little bit too, because my background, I have extensive background work in rural healthcare, and a lot of people don't understand how that works either. We do have rural healthcare facilities here in North Dakota, but they actually don't have all of the service lines that people need access to. So most of those people have to come to Bismarck, Minot, Fargo, sometimes Grand Forks, but they actually have to go to some of those major cities. So now we have an influx of people that need services, and we don't actually have enough providers to provide those services. So then we actually are dealing with some other difficulties as well. So some of the elderly population are kind of being pushed out of their communities in rural areas, and then they have to live in Bismarck, but to only deal with the factor of being priced out because of their health insurance. And then I hear a lot about property taxes as well. Property taxes is another major component, and that's something that we can talk about at another time, but it's an issue.
Well, I'll tell you, you also mentioned gaps in education system. You came from the
Yes.
education system. Can you expand on some opportunities that we can shore up here in North Dakota?
Okay, sure. So historically, we know that education systems across the United States, when speaking amongst public schools, have always fell short in funding. This is not a new issue. It's not. But something that we actually can do in North Dakota is start out by properly funding schools at the state level. Now that the states have control, because I know in past, I'm going to go back with some past conversations that I have had with former legislators, they have always made the statement, oh, it's up to the district to take care of the issues, but the district, they don't have enough funding to take care of the issues. And they never were properly funded by the state level to take care of those issues. So I think what needs to happen is the state of North Dakota need to properly fund schools, and that would actually help. It would help if then most of the people that I'm going to take a step back and talk a little bit about door knocking.
Yeah.
I actually been having a lot of conversations with people while door knocking. It's not okay, so we have this big issue about property taxes. It's a big issue. It's not that people are opposed to supporting schools. It's that right now they can't afford the property taxes. Sure. They just can't afford it. And another problem that I see is when we talk about public schools too, that most people don't care about the issues related to public schools until it impacts someone in their family.
Yeah.
That's one issue that I have noticed, because we may have the financial well-being to provide for our families or to provide for our children, but for some reason with public schools we fall short. But at the end of the day, public schools provide services to private schools as well. So why wouldn't the state provide more funding to support public schools? I mean, it's a strategic plan, right?
Absolutely.
So that would actually ensure that public schools are compliant, ADA compliant, because this is probably one of the first states I have lived in that the schools aren't ADA compliant. And I think I may measure that in a different perspective because of my background in healthcare, because in healthcare, when I manage facilities, if my facilities wasn't compliant, I would actually have to deal with DOJ.
Sure.
And lawsuits and other lawsuits, because you have to be ADA compliant. It's a law and it's required. So when we think about public schools, we should be ADA compliant. And I think that would be up to the state, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, funding schools is a big thing. The district here in Bismarck just had a big bond referendum that almost passed. I understand that might be on the ballot again here shortly, but I'll tell you, we got about 30 seconds left. Is there anything else you'd like to maybe mention or make note of about your campaign?
I kind of went kind of silent there for a minute. But what I want people to know is that I am in support of the people and I'm listening. That's something that I have been told by many people in District 7 that they want. They just want somebody to listen. That's it.
I think that's a good note to end on. My name is Patrick Hart. We're going to cut to commercial break. We have Tiffany Williams-Rice talking about properly funding schools and making sure that healthcare is there for seniors. And Kimball Banks is a little skittish on these big AI data centers coming to town. We'll be back after this commercial break. Welcome back, viewers. My name is Patrick Hart, and I'm joined today with Kimball Banks, running for District 33 House, and Tiffany Williams-Rice, running for District 7 House. Now, Kimball, we talked a lot about AI last segment with you. Do you have anything else that maybe piques your curiosity as far as serving the people this next legislative session?
Well, first off, I'd like to see a strong, independent ethics commission, and it is not subject to the political whims of whichever party's in control. I think we need that. We need a backstop against unethical practices. And it seems that, from federal level on down, unethical practices are becoming the norm, and I don't want to see that. The other thing is, like Tiffany, I'm concerned about education. I think we need to start training, or we need to train students for where the jobs are in the future. I grew it when I went through college. It was get a college education and go to graduate school. So I followed that track, but that's not the case anymore. I mean, vocational schools, you can make a lot of money as a vocation rather than as a college professor or whatever. So. And then the other thing you tipped on was rural health care. The district I run in is a very rural district, and healthcare is an issue out there, as are food deserts. And I think we're seeing more of those in North Dakota, more so than it should be. So those are pretty much the issues I'm watching and concerned about.
Now, as a senior, yard signs, lawn signs, yard signs all over town. What has been door knocking? What's your experience been as a candidate so far?
I've loved it. It's been a very uplifting and positive experience. I don't particularly like talking to myself, but I like listening to what people's stories are. And there are a lot of them out there. And the thing that I've found that gives me a lot of hope is it doesn't matter whether you're conservative or liberal. We're sharing similar issues. And I hear that repeatedly. And that gives me hope that, people, the other thing is, we're too far apart. There's the left and the right are too far apart. And they want to see people come together, and listening to them, hearing, sharing similar issues, I think eventually we will come together. So it gives me a very positive outlook.
Well, one thing, and I don't know where the blame comes, and maybe it doesn't matter where we, root cause analysis thing. But I feel like in politics, we define ourselves by what we don't believe in, instead of coming together to figure out what we can make solid ground on and what solutions we can provide. And that's kind of a dark place where you start defining yourself.
Well, I've only had two bad experiences. One, I was called a terrorist because I was a Democrat, which I was impressed by. Whoa, didn't know. But, it's right. I mean, we're not talking to each other, and they say the same thing whether you're conservative or liberal, and I think that to me is hopeful. Now, if we can just carry that over and get talking about it, I think we'll find that we share a lot of common interests and common issues.
I love it. Tiffany, you talked in the segment break about affordability being a big issue. What are your thoughts on how we can make North Dakota a little bit more affordable for all?
So I've been having a lot of conversations while outdoor knocking. A lot of people just can't make ends meet at this time. And groceries is a big issue. And it's a more complex issue because we don't have a lot of competition here.
Sure.
So that's something that we can think about too. Like, yeah, when thinking about the affordability as far as groceries, but I think we all know what the problem is. That problem starts at the federal level and then it's trickling down to the local level. So right now, what I think we can do is when we think about how fast the rate of inflation is increasing, what we need to do is think about the salaries. I feel like the salaries and wages need to pretty much be evaluated to make sure that they are aligned so that people can make ends meet, whether you work in the oil industry, whatever industry you may work in. But at this time, a lot of people in the oil industry are no longer working in that industry at the time because of the increase in, no, not increase, but decrease in some things that in production at this time. So that makes it difficult for families as well. I've been having conversations like a family was previously making 200K. Now it's half of that, or maybe 70K. How do you balance that out if you're a homeowner?
Well, certainly, and when I look at wages increased from the mid '90s to 2010, there was just very small incremental shifts in labor, but then the Bakken happened, and it seemed like all of a sudden $10 went up to 25 or 30 because we have to compete with what's going on out west, and now unfortunately that market's kind of crashing.
It appears as if when the boom happened in North Dakota, the wages didn't keep up.
Right.
And I would say probably just not for Bismarck alone, but across the state. But there is some statistics that indicate that everything is on target, but the people are feeling the pressure. So I'm not sure where that statistics or that data came from. So that's something that I would need to do a little bit more research on. But I feel like we need to do something about the wages because right now the wages aren't keeping up with inflation here in North Dakota. Well, Bismarck.
Do you have any door knocking stories from your time on the trail so far?
Absolutely. Door knocking has been good, but there have been a few days that have been difficult for me. Overall, I have been hearing some great conversations of people telling me that they would like to see more representation. They want to see Democrats and Republicans in office. We haven't had any Democrats in office since the 80s in the Bismarck area. So they want to see some of that representation because both sides can collaborate and have those conversations and make the decisions together for all of our community members. And then, of course, I have some people that have some difficulties trying to, I think with the party affiliation. Okay, I am running for office as a Democrat, we all know. And it's this stronghold that people don't like Democrats in North Dakota. And it's based on issues that's happening at a national level.
Sure.
Though some of those issues will never happen here in North Dakota. So I don't understand the dynamics of that. I wish people would look at me as an individual rather than, oh, Tiffany is running as a Democrat. Yes, I am running for office as a Democrat, but I have conservative values. I think we all have conservative values. A lot of us may go to church. A lot of us may be engaged in community events. So I think that all of us care about property taxes. All of us care about healthcare. All of us care about public education as well. So when we think about Democrat versus Republican, we all have the same values.
I love it. Kimball, I got about a minute and a half for you. Can you maybe make a pitch to your constituents on why you're the right guy for the job this fall?
Well, I think I'm the right guy for the job. Although I've got a graduate degree, I had a very career before I went to graduate school. I worked on a salmon boat in Alaska. I did land clearing, a whole bunch of physical jobs that required a lot of physical labor, and I learned the value of hard work, and I respect people that work with their hands. Like I said, today if I was going to go back to school, I get to go for a vocation rather than a degree that I have. So I've had a varied experience. I enjoy talking to the people in the district. I mean, I've learned a lot, so much. And, I have so much respect for them, what they're up against. I think the rural areas of North Dakota are going to be undergoing a big change over the next few years. And I want to make sure that those changes are done in the best interests of the residents of the counties or the district. So that's about it. So,
Hey, you got my vote with that. Tiffany, same question. You got about a minute and a half.
Well, for me, I think people should vote for me because I have the expertise in healthcare, education. I understand policies. I understand laws. And I collaborate well with people. I think that's the most important piece, is being able to collaborate with people and understand policies as well, and being able to speak to policies and do research on policies. And I feel like my ability to listen to people is very important too, because most of the issues that I have talked about today are issues that people care about, not what I care about only, but it's what everybody has some concerns about. And as I mentioned, with my expertise in healthcare, my expertise in education, and my overall background, also I have some policy background as well, because I worked as an intern for Mike Huckabee some time ago in Arkansas. So I have that policy background, and I understand policies, and I understand how bills and legislation, the process goes.
Well, I appreciate you, Tiffany. This has been Patrick Hart with another episode of Open Road, Open Range. And just want to let you guys know, a couple Democrats talking about making North Dakota more ethical and making North Dakota affordable again. It's nothing that's too extreme. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.